Hey, fourth grade friends, it is Miss Trammell, and we are back again for day 5 of Number Corner. I know that you can't see my face today, and I'm so sorry about that, but I'm just having some technical difficulties with my computer, so that I need to get that fixed before I'll show you my beautiful face again. So for now, you'll see just a picture of me, and that's back when I had my hair a little differently than what I have now. But it's still me, I promise. Anyways, let's jump into today's activities. It is February 8th, and we will be looking at our calendar grid. We will update our calendar collector, and then we're going to talk about decimals on a number line. Before we look at today's date, though, let's just go ahead and look at the calendar markers for the previous days that we have yet to see, like Friday, which was a teacher work day for me, and you guys had a day off of school. Just to remind you about some of the vocabulary that we are using, this is a line. It makes a line. We do have a point on the line, but a line goes on forever in both directions. It's a straight line. Let's look at 6. These lines are kind of reminding me of a clock. Now we could talk about the angle here. We could also talk about the angle here. What type of angle? Do you remember what it's called when you have an angle that is greater than 90 degrees? It starts with an O, ob. Right, obtuse. It's an obtuse angle. Let's see the 7. So this could be a right angle, but really since we started here and we're going around this way, we're looking at this big old angle right here. And I'll kind of draw on this picture so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. We're looking at this angle right here, okay? And that brings us to today's calendar marker, which is the 8th. And it looks like we're getting closer and closer to what we connected to being 12 o'clock. All right. I wonder how many angles we're going to collect today. So let's go ahead and do our calendar collector. I will spin first. It looks like we're adding another 30 degrees, so 31 degree angles if you want to think about it like that. Right now we have 76. We have 76 degrees. So if we're adding 30 degrees to that, what are we going to land on? What's 30 plus 76? Good, it would be 106. So 101, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And remember, I need to take a straight edge. I should take a straight edge. It's really hard to do that on the computer, so that I can line it up just right to represent my angle. So since we're talking about 30 degrees, really this angle right here from this point to this point is indeed 30 degrees. That is what we have collected today. And now we are at 106, and I will update that on our calendar collector. Okay, and now for where we're going to spend the majority of our day, which is talking about decimals on a number line. I so hope that you are familiar with number lines. And if you're not, let me just show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Here is my number line for today. And I'm making it really big, but that's probably too big, so we'll stick with this. And this number line at the bottom that we're focusing on, we already have a scale, okay? We have 0 and 1, which means this is a closed number line and we can't just put numbers wherever we want because the scale has already been given to us. Our job is to figure out how many equal parts is the line divided into, and then label those parts. And we're going to label them with decimals today. So how many parts are between 0 and 1? Right, there are 10 parts. So when we're talking about number lines, we're talking about distance or an interval between one number and the next. So you cannot just count the lines, because if I count the lines in between, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, that there were 9 spaces, but really they're not. There are 10 equal parts, okay? So this would be 1, 2, 3. You get it? Okay. So I would like for you to draw this number line and add the decimals to the number line based on what you understand about decimals and what we just talked about with how many spaces are between 0 and 1. And if you need to, you can draw a rectangle and separate that into 10 equal parts, or a circle, whatever model that you need to draw that can be divided into 10 equal parts. So I'm going to give you an example here. Here's what I can draw. Right, hopefully you have your model drawn. Maybe you drew the number line and you went ahead and labeled it. So let's talk about how you labeled it. If we know that there are 10 equal parts, then how would I say that if I was talking about fractions? If I was talking in terms of a fraction, how might I say that? What might I say about one of those pieces? Right, I would say that it is a tenth. And so maybe I would say that this is also a tenth, which would mean the rest of these are also tenths, right? Right, so I've represented all my tenths. Could we also say that maybe this is 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10, 10/10? Could we say it like that? We could. More so if we were to shade it in, that means we would be representing. So if I shade in 2, then I'm representing 2 1/10 size pieces. For our purposes though, how can we use this model, or maybe even the number line if you chose to draw a number line, to compare 8/10 and 3/10? Where would I find 8/10? Right, so I'm going to mark that in a different color. Here would be 8/10. So where's the 3/10? How can I compare that? 8/10 is 8 1/10 size pieces. And 3/10 is 3 1/10 size pieces. So which one is bigger? Which one takes up more space? Which one would you rather if we're talking about pieces of a candy bar? Yeah, 8/10 is greater than 3/10. So here's the number line, which maybe I showed it to you prematurely. Maybe I should have just had you drawn your own representation first, but that's okay since we're virtual and you guys are watching this via video and hopefully participating because you're responsible for your learning. Let's look at the number line and let's see if we can relate this number line to what you just did. And if you already drew out your number line and figured out what to do or what numbers to put here, then that's awesome. Let's label each point of this number line as both a decimal and as a fraction. Okay, so here we go. Let's put this here for now. So what is the first one? Right, it's 1/10. And I'm going to start off by writing it as a decimal. So we have 1/10 And then what? Right, 2/10. And then what? 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and so on. Great. And so I've labeled them all for you. So we have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, 9/10. Can you see how that's related? So we showed our 8/10 here and our 3/10. We've only written it so far as a decimal. I'm going to go ahead and add the fractions as well, and I would like for you to do the same. So if you need to pause this video to do so, go right ahead. All right, so now our number line is labeled. If you took the time to label the number line before me, maybe you did it differently. Maybe you started at 5/10 because it's really easy to label a half or find the halfway point in between 0 and 1, and then did 4/10 because you knew that came before 5/10, which is a half, or 6/10 because it comes after a half. However you decided to label it, as long as your number line looks like mine, you are in good shape. But I want you to think about the number, what numbers would be on the line between 2/10 and 3/10. We have our number line labeled, but remember Ms. Trammell said that when we're talking about number lines and fractions, we're not just counting the tick marks. We're looking at the interval or the space, the distance between one point and the next. And so between 2/10 and 3/10, there's some space there, and there are actually numbers in between them. So what might those numbers be? All right, let's see. So here's our number line. We've already labeled that. Let's zoom in. So pretend like we're zooming in to see what's between 2/10 and 3/10. So I just zoomed right on in there, okay? Now, we're gonna label the hundredths that come between the 2/10 and the 3/10. And I hope by now you guys are really good with your place value with decimals, because we have the ones place and then the tenths place, and after the tenths place would be the hundredths place. So here's a question, food for thought. What do you think is bigger, 2/10 or 23 hundredths? Did you say 23 hundredths? How do you know? Yeah, so 2/10 we can think of as is 20 hundredths, because in a 10 is 10 of those little hundredths. So 20 is less than 23, or 20 hundredths would be less than 23 hundredths. So then which one would be smaller, 3/10 or 27 hundredths? Yeah, 27 hundredths is smaller because 3/10 is like saying how many hundredths? Right, like saying 30 hundredths. Let's go ahead and label the numbers that come in between 2/10 and 3/10. After 2/10, which we can write it also as 20 hundredths. So if you need to write it like that to help you, please do so. So 2/10 is the same thing as saying 20 hundredths. So what comes after 20 hundredths? Good, 21 hundredths. And then what? Right, 22 hundredths. And then what? Yeah, 23. See if you can continue. I think that you should be able to. And if you finished, go ahead and write those numbers as a fraction as well. All right, hope you're with me. Hopefully you have yours filled out. If you need some more time, remember, you can pause the video. My last question for you. So we've labeled our hundredths. How many of hundredths are between 2/10 and 3/10? How many? Yeah, Now let's look back at our 0 to 1 number line. So you can see that up here, right here. If I were to label all the hundredths on my number line, how many hundredths would there be? I really hope you said 100 hundredths, because 100 hundredths is the same thing as saying one whole. Like 100 pennies is one whole dollar, or 10 dimes is one whole dollar. So 10 tenths would be one whole dollar. So this month, we're going to be talking about decimal numbers on a number line. We're going to be comparing decimals on a number line. So hopefully you stayed with me. I know it's kind of weird hearing my voice and seeing my face, but hopefully that will be fixed in a jiffy. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.